I've automated hundreds of businesses and I've saved agency owners thousands of hours collectively. Like Camillo, who runs a 153,000 subscriber YouTube channel, who I helped save 10 hours per week by automating his entire editing, copywriting, and UGC funnel. I've also coached dozens of e-commerce agency owners, from product page developers to email marketers and ad creative agencies, helping them implement AI-powered workflows that transform their clients' results and streamline their operations. So it's safe to say I know a thing or two about leveraging AI for agency growth. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to use Deepseek and web scrapers alongside n8n to generate comprehensive market research documents for all of your e-commerce clients in minutes, not hours. By the end of this video, you'll be able to stop wasting dozens of hours manually researching clients and clicking on Reddit and Trustpilot to look for different things, create data-driven UGC, email marketing, and ad creative insights, and deliver high-value services to your clients without increasing your workload. Let's get into it. Okay. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how to make a market research document report out of any single ecom brand that you work with profiles online. So what this AI agent does is it takes everything that it can find about the brand and the product on the internet, and then it develops a report with pain points, objections, the stuff about reviews, personas, and a bunch of other things that you could use in order to help your creative strategists and your copywriters write effective copy for your landing pages, your product pages, your emails, your ad creatives, your UGC briefs, whatever it may be. So the way that I'm going to do this is very simple. I have the name of a brand, the name of a product, and the URL here. So I'm just going to click go, and it's going to do a number of things. So the first thing that we can see here is that GPT-4o is being called, and 3 things have already happened. So Airtable has been called, and what we've done is we have retrieved a bunch of information from an Airtable base, which I'll go to show you in a second. Then we've gone in and we've queried reddit.com/ the name of the brand and just found some of the stuff from the SEO descriptions of those pages. We've then done the same thing for the name of the product, and now you can see what it's doing is it's going through and going to our Trustpilot scraper and our Deepseek deep researcher. So the Trustpilot scraper is as simple as it sounds. You're basically going through and using SERP to do a very targeted search on Trustpilot. Then you're looking for the Trustpilot information, you're converting all of it to plain text, and you're basically getting the information straight back into this node in a structured format that it can continue to use moving forwards. And then for the Deepseek deep researcher, it's going through this and it's basically just creating a massive research document. And the beauty is in the devil's in the details, because there's a lot of stuff in between the spaces here that I want to highlight whilst I'm making this, and a lot of it's got to do with prompting and choice of LLM. So this is going to take another couple of minutes in order to fix itself. Once it's done, the document's going to get created and I'm going to get pinged in Slack with information as to, what it spits out. So I'm going to pause this and then we're going to return once it gets to that stage. Okay, so it looks like we're done now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up Slack, and this is going to give us the link inside of our channel here, automations. So if I click on here, you'll see what the output is. So market research breakdown, client name, product. This document below provides the basis of the market research information that will be used in our creative briefs. Great. So this is what it spits out. We have the features. We have the benefits. We have some prior pain points. Before finding it, customers often struggled with jackets that were either too basic and didn't offer the features, or overpriced design options that lacked practical usability, objections, emotions, personas. So it even spits out 2 avatars with demographic, psychographic, target awareness detail, and creative strategy detail as well. 10 to 20 headlines, comparisons, trigger events being the point at which people decide that they are going to pull the trigger and actually buy, top objections, and one-liners. And this has all been spat out, and it took maybe 4 to 5 minutes for it to be created. And I can kind of validate for some of these because I own this windbreaker. So this is kind of how it's being created, and I'm going to walk through the individual steps so that you can understand exactly what was used to piece this together and exactly what the automations look like and the prompts and the choice. The reason why I chose the LLMs that I chose. So we're going to go through and quickly have a look at the first few automations, which will start off with the actual agent in and of itself. So if you haven't actually seen AI agents in general, I mean, honestly, they're incredibly simple. All you would need to do is add a node, type in AI agent. Congratulations, you have an AI agent. This is all it is. That's literally, there's nothing else to it. There's an input, and then the agent is just a chat with some memory attached and a bunch of tools attached as well. So the way that it works in this situation is that we have, whenever a chat message is received, which you can see up here, it will feed the AI agent, and then the AI agent is being told what to do by a system prompt inside of it. And the prompt in and of itself looks like this, which I'll expand down, and in fact, I'll make it expression, and then I'll click this button so you can see it in the detail. So every single one of these follows basically five headlines, if you want to call it. So we have a role, a context, a core objective, tools, just an explanation of the tools that are attached to it, specific requirements. And then I added layout here because layout is something that was, necessary for the document that we have here. So this is going to be super, super hard to read. So I'm just going to zoom in a tiny bit, but it usually starts off with you are a world leading blank. You know everything about blank, and world leading would just be, okay, what's the job title for the person that would be doing the thing that we're getting AI to do, and what is the name of the agency that this is going to be a part of. And everything there is to know about blank means this, everything there is to know about the thing that we're trying to, the skills and capabilities that's going to take from the job that we're asking it to do, and that can allow it to do it the best. So if we're talking about coding and we're talking about like backend databases, it would be, you're a world leading CTO for an insert X company. Everything there is to know about Postgres, insert tech stack here, insert automation here, insert jargon here. And you can just use GPT to find out what these things would be anyways. Then we have some context, which is just, exactly what it says on the bin, on the tin. Then you have the core objective, which is you'll be provided with X, Y, and Z. Your task is to do X. And this needs to be really, really clear when you say it so that it can do the right things. Now, the meat and potatoes is really this with the tools. So the tools are descriptions of the things that you use to feed the AI agent actions that it's going to then pull in. So in this situation, and before I go in and I read these, I'm going to show you the inside of some of these tools. So the first thing is some of the automations. So with the tools themselves, you can add other workflows. You can add JavaScript and Python. You can add HTTP requests. And you can add a few other things as well, like Airtable tools, AWS, ClickUp, and a bunch of other things as well. So knowing that we can add these things means that we now need to understand the AI agent is going to give direction as to when to use it. The tool in and of itself is going to have a description inside of it to say this is when it should be used. So it's kind of like a two-way conversation. So I'll explain by looking into this. So when you open up any of these and you start and you create a new action, the first thing it will do is it will ask you to create a name. This isn't too important, to be fair, but what's most important here is the description and the workflow inputs. So you want to say, call this tool to get X. The input should be this. You will receive Y as an output, something along those lines. And then when you do it in that way, you then just pick the workflow, and then you can add a step and then basically say define it, let the model automatically define what needs to go here. Now we've already created a brand and a product name because that's what's been fed in from the agent. So you can see that if we go in here and we start to talk or look at the tools themselves, you can see that for example, the Trustpilot scraper tool we're being told to use the scraper tool to pull the Trustpilot reviews, send the brand name and the product name as specified by the user's input. It's okay, system, this is the tool, send this to the tool, and then inside of the tool, call this whenever you need this. That's it. And it just does the rest of the work. So I think it's one of the better uses of our time here as well, because that is literally the principle and guidance behind everything that you would need to do whenever it comes to using a tool. The best thing to do would be to show you what some of these tools are, because now I can start to talk about the LLMs and the choice of LLMs that I've been using. So the first one is the Trustpilot scraper itself. So this starts off with a trigger called when executed by another workflow. And we have an input schema here, which is the brand and the product. And again, it's just us talking to what it said it was going to, what the tools system prompt said was going to send. It's going to send a brand and a product name. So if a brand and a product name is present in the input for the AI agent in this, it will send off that information to here if it's been told to by this part. And once it's received, it will work through these things. And you can just determine brand and product name. And what we did was we pinned an example when we, first did this so that we could continue creating the rest of it. Then we do an API search. Now, SERP API has a pretty intricate way that it will create some of its searches. But the long and short of it is we have SERP API is just how you would search Google programmatically using APIs. So let me just put it up and show you what it looks like. So this is the Google search engine results API. It takes in a query as well as maybe geographical location and some advanced Google parameters. And then it will spit out a number of different things, which you can see with this output here. Now, how did I know to use all of this stuff? I didn't, to be honest. I literally created a new account with a trial API key, so you couldn't even use this to drain my stuff if you wanted to. And I've basically just gone in and I just Control P, went in, saved as a PDF, uploaded that into Claude and said, hey, this is my search. Can you give me this? Can you give me the API parameters? Give it to me in curl format and then blank. And what happens is when you stick it in curl format, you can just import that and it will just spit out the rest of it. And that's basically what I did there. Now, what I needed to do here is encode URI, JSON, brand plus Trustpilot. So what I'm doing here is, and you can see this by the result, I just needed the right JavaScript notation to put the brand and the product in one go inside of a string that I'm going to use inside the SERP API. And I need to encode URI because if I was to put benjar space plus space Trustpilot, what it would do is it would error out because that's not a valid URL. So if I wrap it inside of a encode URI, then it gives me benjar %20, which is the ampersand here, or is the space, sorry, is the encoded URI for a space, and then Trustpilot. So that's just some of the nitty gritty that you need to find out when you're doing these things. And again, the beauty about n8n is a lot of it is based in JavaScript, and JavaScript obviously being code is something that a lot of LLMs have a lot of practice in. So if you don't know what to do, or you don't know what needs to be done, for example, with some of these inputs, you can just ask an LLM and it will just give you the information because this is ubiquitous across a lot of other code itself. So that's the SERP API search. And we've just searched benjar Trustpilot. So what we're doing now is we're searching for trustpilot.com/review as part of the organic results link, because that will be the first part of the URL that we need. So it'll be, www.trustpilot.com/review/ whatever we found when we searched up the brand name and Trustpilot. So it should pop up with the brand name's Trustpilot. If they don't have one, then this will error out. It will just return nothing. If they do have one, then we get all of the information. And this information holds a lot of stuff. That information needs to be taken from a simple GET request to the website. And this is like very basic scraping stuff. You can do this inside of like make.com and Zapier as well. If you open up a raw HTTP request and you put in a URL, it will take the HTML of that URL and it will just spit it out. And that's exactly what we did here. So we've just taken the organic results link, which is the trustpilot.com/reviews/brand link, and we're doing a GET request on it. And all we've done is we've put in user-agent, and we've basically taken a cookie here. So this here you can basically find this online, or you can type in, you can put F12, go into your console and just look for it inside of there anyways. Any of those would work for you to spit out the scrape information. And once you spat that out, you would then go HTML to plain text. And again, will look scary. I did not make any of this. This is all made by an LLM. All I asked it to do was to convert HTML into plain text in the most effective way possible. And it came out with this. And all I've done now is I've just gone in and I just spit in this information, and the result is clean plain text. We do this to get rid of doc type HTML, HTML lang. You can see some of these HTML tags here. All of that is jargon. All of that is nonsense, and it's not going to help us when it comes to what we do next, which is feeding it into our LLM chain. Now, the only reason why I'm not using OpenAI here is because OpenAI was bugging out when I was making this. So I would normally use OpenAI, but what's inside of it is, you know, pretty straightforward. You are a helpful assistant that specializes in dealing with customer reviews. Your output looks like this. And I've, again, gone in, asked a separate Claude project / chat to generate a JSON structure that would be something that I could feed in that would get me a sentiment, text, rating, and date, stick it in an array, and call it reviews, and it spat this out. So even though all of this stuff looks confusing, if you know what it is in your head, problem-wise, you can spit it out any way, shape, or form that you would want, just because you can just ask an LLM to give you the answers, and then you can troubleshoot back and forth by testing it, and if it doesn't work, going back and changing it, making the changes, testing until it works. And then we have and that was the system prompt. So the system prompt just gives us what the output's meant to be, just tells us what it's meant to be. And then the user prompt is a text message, which would say, here is the Trustpilot page. Please put all of the reviews on this page in the JSON structure provided. So you're just taking this gigantic block of text, which looks like this. And you can see here the professionalism, efficiency, willingness to assist, quality of clothing is very, very poor and cheap, is extremely overpriced. Like all of this stuff here, that's a little bit harsh. Benjart's pretty nice. But all of this information here is in plain text and is just going to be taken apart and put inside of the JSON structure. We need a strict JSON structure here. Well, technically we don't, but I've made a strict JSON structure here, and I've used what's called an output parser in order to do that. So, and you just saw it really quickly there. It said connect an output parser on the canvas to specify the output format you require. We already have. So that is now just taking this information, and I've just picked the auto fixing one, and I've just left it in as blank. And the structured output parser is exactly what I copied in from the LLM to get to here. So now it's going to spit out reviews, sentiment, text, rating, date. And you can even see what the result is now. So the output is reviews, sentiment was positive, text, lovely high quality clothing, needed to exchange a couple of items to different sizes, yada, 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 rating, and then a date. Sentiment, negative, quality is not good at all, stitching comes loose easily, and also negative, negative, positive, positive, negative, positive. So there's 7 here, and it's basically gone in, confirmed that it was correct, and then it spat it back out again inside of this JSON output reviews system thing here, which is a set field. Now, you don't actually need this set field here, and personally, I think it's actually caused me more errors than it needed to. So you could leave it like that, and it would actually spit out whatever the output is or whatever the end of this is. So that is the Trustpilot scraper, and that is what would happen. And you can see here that the reviews have come out, and you can see that it's structured with, you know, when you see this, it's in JSON just because it's just spitting out what it needs to spit out. And that kind of explains what the Trustpilot scraper is. So that's the first one. The second one is the Deepseek LLM chain. Now, all of the beauty of this is inside of the prompt and inside of the settings that we have, because this text that we have is just what we dragged in, which is, again, executed by another workflow, brand and product name, which is what we asked the market research agent to do when calling on Deepseek. So if I open this up again, you'll see when I scroll down to tools, it will say to use Deepseek to augment the pool of information with info on the state of the world for the people who really buy these products. So what we're doing here is we're getting a more broader outlook on the types of people that buy, as opposed to just general information about the product and reviews and things like that. So if you click onto here, the description here is call this tool to get deep research on the overall brand. The input should be the brand name, company name, and product name. The output will be a densely packed summary of everything that the LLM was able to find with online research. And then we just put brand, product name here as workflow inputs that we've manually mapped. So we're just basically setting key value pairs to send to the Deepseek LLM chain. Clicked on the defined automatically by the model button here, which you can find if you just click on that. And it spits out this. And what it spits out is absolutely amazing, simply because of how we've prompted it. So take a look at this. We have this system prompt here, which is very, very clear, concise, small, and it doesn't follow the massive system prompt idea that we wanted. We just needed something that would get us exactly what we needed. And what we needed was psychological information on the people that we're going after, because if you're doing any level of creative strategy, you need to understand the psychology and the target awareness of the people, the actual avatars. So a lot of this information that gets spit out is what powers a lot of the stuff that's inside of the personas that come out of the report. So let me zoom in again a little bit. You are a top market researcher for a marketing company that knows how to find hidden information about what customers really think. The date today is this, and this is just now format YYYYMMDD. This is something that you can find again from an LLM and just ask it to give you the JavaScript notation for what the now would be. And it also shows you how to do that inside of n8n as well. Your task is to search for as many relevant reviews and comments about the brand JSON.brand, which is this here, and the product called JSON product name, and then synthesize that information into a mini report with quotes and citations that encapsulates the state of the world around who truly buys these types of products. You want to achieve transcendence, such that if the people you research were to read what you wrote, they would feel that you've been spying on them their whole entire lives. So you can get creative with the way that you talk about it, and you can really emphasize what you're looking for with very colorful language. And the output, if I go back into the executions, I'll be able to find the output again, is something quite extraordinary, because if I click here and then zoom out, you'll be able to see what it spits out. So if I type in, if I look at table, mini report, the hidden truth about who buys Ben Jart's HRH windbreaker. It's not a jacket, it's a crown. Buyers are predominantly 18 to 30-year-olds entrenched in UK street culture, where the jacket doubles as a badge of belonging. As Grand King UK tweeted, wearing HRH feels like repping royalty. You don't just buy it, you earn the right to flex it. So it's got quotes here as well. At £220, the HRH windbreaker is a calculated splurge. A TikTok comment confesses, I ate ramen for 6 weeks, but when I walked into Nano's with that windbreaker, instant VIP vibes. This is really good, and this is stuff that will augment the feel of everything in that you're asking for. And you can see here it says this report synthesizes 127 social media posts, forum threads, and e-commerce reviews dated 2023 to 2025. Names anonymized for privacy. Now, I've actually searched up this tweet wearing HRH feels like repping royalty, and it actually does pop up with I'll be able to find it again if I go on Twitter, but if I type in, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but if I type it in, I'll be able to find it. Grand King UK. Hold on. Okay, so this one I wasn't able to find, but a lot of them come from places that you can even ask Deepseek to even give you the citations for, so that you can get direct links. So previous versions of this automation actually had a direct link to that tweet. Some of the information is around a year to 2 years old, as you can see by even nearer the end where it says that it's taking from stuff dated 2023 to 2025. All of this information again is going to get passed over to a creative strategist who's going to go on and do their due diligence. So a lot of the times, and especially with this, you can probably you can probably change some of these descriptions so that it can spit out particular things so that you can cross-reference and cross-check things. But that's basically what it comes down to with the Deepseek LLM chain. And it's super, super simple to a point where this is all you need. And this is all you need in order for Deepseek to do what it needs to do. Now, the model that you need is the Deepseek Reasoner. And the information that's inside of here is as simple as this. And it will do all of the research that it needs to do. So when picking the LLM chain, if you make this definition and then you use the Deepseek chat model, it will use online search inside of your searches in order to spit out the information it needs to. And then the final thing here is taking that information and dropping it into a market research document. So this is the final of the actual automations. So for example, this one here is going to finish the actual job and create the document and then finalize everything and then send that Slack message once this information gets sent in. And this one here uses all of the information that we have taken from the market research information as we've come to this stage. So if I open this up, you'll see what I mean by that. And it's inside of the tools one more time, and it's placed conveniently at the bottom of the tools as well. So if I go in and zoom in a little bit, this part here, use the document creator to turn the info into a document, format the information you've received thus far for the specified input, returns the URL of the document. Now for that, what we needed was to tell it that the document creator needs to be called to generate the document in the final step, return the URL of the document. The input should be the complete response taken from all previous steps up until this point, and the output should be the document URL. And here we're generating key value pairs. So the same way that we're generating JSON snippets for the reviews for Trustpilot, we create key value pairs which are for every single part of this document here. So you can see here that if I go into, for example, if I go into here, market research breakdown, client name, product, features, benefits, it's taking all of these. And I'll show you how it's taking all of these. It is reading from a template. Market research breakdown, client name is company name, product is product, features, benefits, pain points, objections. And you can see here that the entire thing is generated by merge fields. Now these merge fields are exactly what the drag and drop element of n8n and all of these other builders are going to fill in. So nothing is different there, but you have to specify in the early stage before it even goes into the document what's meant to go where. So at this point, and if we open up the logs inside of this, you can see right before the document, right before the document creator, what's been happening the entire time. So we have the system prompts all through here. Then we have the information from Trustpilot. Then we have some more Trustpilot. So we have Trustpilot review. Sorry, this is the information from Airtable. So this is from the Airtable tool. Then we have the Trustpilot information. Then we have the report. And then the final thing that it needs to do is talk to us and tell us, okay, we now need to put the document. We now need to put all the information into the document. So take everything inside of here and stick it inside of the document by generating a query that will allow us to populate every single one of those fields that we've specified beforehand. So we've got company name, product, features, benefits, pain points, and it's just taking all of this information, formatting it and sticking it in here into this massive JSON packet, using GPT-4o to then send it over to the market research document. And it's basically going in and generating something that looks like this. So if you imagine what we created as like a row in a table, where the first column is a company name, the second is the product, the third is the features, benefits, pain points, objections, and everything else that's created through AI. It's gone there, and we've now used Google Drive and Google Docs to copy, update, share, and then give us back the URL. So we're copying the template document, this one here, we're copying that, and we're calling it the product name, market research. Then we're updating the document by ID, and we're getting all of the objects. So we're doing find and replace the text, and we're using those merge fields as replacers for what we're going to put in. And you can see here that all of them look like when executed by another workflow, item, JSON, and then the field. And that's what pops up when you have products and features and benefits and the rest of them as well. And you can see here on the right side what the result is. So Benjar is a result here. Benjar, find and replace product, this, HRH windbreaker khaki. And you'll see when we execute the previous nodes that the information is going to pop up, and you can just drag and drop these into the different places. So features would be this, and it just pops up there. And the result of that is features. And again, this is me using the previous set of information here that we pinned in order to test this going forwards. So you can see features is features, benefits, pain points is pain points, yada, yada, yada. And now that we have that information put in, we then share the file. We set it to anybody can read it. And what that will do is it will create a URL that we can share, and that URL gets put inside of this. Now, it will create an ID. So if I execute the previous node, you'll see what I mean. The ID that it will create is something that you'll see right here, document ID. So every single link every single Google document follows this URL naming system. It's https docs.google.com/document/d/this string here, right here, /edit tab equals t.0. This is a document ID, and every single document has a different one. Every single document has a different one, as you can see here. Now, that information is basically what we need to dynamically augment inside of our field so that we can share a URL that can be used in the final step, which is to send a Slack message, which is this final message here. And this is as simple as linking a Slack account, sending the resources are going to be a message, clicking send is the message, sending it to a specified channel called automations in this sense. And it's just saying new market research document created, document URL is this JSON output. And it's not a bot, it's actually me. So this isn't coming up as tada, but the entire thing that's being created is generated in this manner, just like this. And that is how you create the entirety of the market research breakdown. So there's one thing that I wanted to share with you, and it's something that I noticed whilst going through this system, and it's the reason why you need to be able to use a bunch of different LLMs and understand that you're going to need a bunch of different API keys for a bunch of different resources. So here is a quick guide or a quick table on how to use the different LLMs when you are playing around inside of n8n, Make, Zapier, or any other AI agent creation tool, whether it be like Flowgen or Area, or maybe even Poppy AI even does this. I'm not too sure if that's the case, but there are a bunch of different LLMs which use APIs. And the APIs so there's a bunch of different ways of using the LLMs through APIs, and they're a little bit different to the way that you would use them inside of the projects or the chat that you would have when you open up Claude or you open up ChatGPT and you go through the chat box that way. So we have the LLM models itself, and today is March 13th, 2025. So this is obviously going to change over time once more models come out and these windows increase. But this is kind of like my TLDR on how I use all of them anyways. So let me scroll down so that you can see everything. So that's everything there. So LLM model, max output, context window length, when to avoid use case. So the model is pretty self-explanatory. The max output is how many tokens it can spit out as a result. One token is on average about 4 characters. So the word curb or the word grow, the word rich, that's one token worth of wording, which means that 16,384 tokens is probably going to end up with an average of about 3 to 5 per. It's basically going to end up being like 15,000 words, 4,000 words, something along those lines. And that all around, I would say 2 to 4 pages. My math is all over the place. I know that was wrong. About 3-4 pages before we start hitting limits. Now, what does this mean? When using something like Claude, we are limited in what we can spit out, which means that we don't want to be creating massive documents with Claude. We do want to be using GPT in order to do those things. Context window length. This is how much information can go in. And the amount of information that can go in is something that's actually increasing as the LLMs get better and better and better. And it means that there's going to be less of a need for things like Pinecone and RAG, depending on how big the system is that you're trying to scale up or use. But it just means that the amount that you can work with is more. So you can see if we go back into n8n, especially with the logs, you'll see that there are, especially when it comes down to using GPT-4o in this manner, look at the size of this. This is a massive, massive prompt. We would not be able to do this if the context window was really, really small, because this is probably around 30 to 40,000 tokens, I would say, in its entirety. And what we've been able to make has been enough for the LLM to think and create what it needs to create. Then it's when to avoid in the use cases. And this is just from my personal experience. So 4.5 right now, when to avoid, I would actually say kind of like right now. The reason why I was playing around with a lot of different LLMs is because it wasn't working. And it wasn't working more so because of, I guess, updates that's happening on ChatGPT's end. Maybe today's an off day. When I made this initially, it was using GPT 4.5. It wasn't using 4.0 mini on the main AI agent, but I actually don't particularly use 4.5 a whole lot, even though it is one of the newest models and it's one of the go-tos. But I will only ever need to use it for on-the-go n8n models, the same way that it would be for 4.0. So this has actually changed since when I actually wrote this, but I would probably switch these two together. 4.0 mini, I'm using it really only for basic work, categorization, processing outputs for thousands of rows in a spreadsheet. So if I'm using something like GPT for Sheets, or n8n's got to go through an entire Google spreadsheet with thousands of rows, and I need some very basic categorization or very basic tasks to occur, I'm going to use 4.0 mini there. I'm not going to use Claude Sonnet 3.7 and spend 20 times more than I need to in that situation. So this is for narrow tasks with minimal complexity, defined outputs. Also, when you want to get the cost down. I always avoid it when I'm doing anything which requires any level of nuance or just intellect. So direct response email copy, out of the window. Absolutely not. 4.0 mini, get lost. No way. Coding, get lost. Absolutely no way. Basically, when you want an LLM for something that it literally you can't be annoyed by it, that's when I would use 4.0 mini. 0.1 I basically never use. I've always found it worse than Claude for the reasons why it would need to be used. The only difference is that if I use 0.1 and I have a massive thing that I want to spit out on the other end, and I keep running into issues where the automation stops working because a JSON output gets truncated, or like I don't get valid JSON which I can pass over to something else. Usually what I'll do is I'll change out the model for one with a bigger max output, because oftentimes you'll just get an incomplete JSON. So where we, for example, had the Trustpilot reviews and it was showing review, sentiment, blah, 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 review, sentiment, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes there might be 15 or 20 of those. If I use something like Claude to do that, I'll maybe get 5 out of 12 and then it will just cut off because the outputs just stopped there, which means that it's not a complete JSON, which means that it won't work. So that's only going to be the reason for me to ever use 0.1 inside of an automation. But 3.7, 3.5, I will almost always default to these unless I need larger outputs. And I'll use 3.7 when I need something in that's like a one-shot task. And by a one-shot task, I mean, I don't want to work too hard to make the prompt amazing. I'm just going to prompt with what I have off the top of my head, spend a minute prompting, bang, and then that's my output. 3.5 is usually going to be my default with anything that people would normally use, a 4.0 for instead of a 4.0 mini. And then Deepseek is only when I'm using deep research. But in this case, I switched it out because it has a relatively larger max output window than some of the others. 3.7 is not available via API yet, but that's basically what it is. Now, the max output here is, as I've said, in relation to their use inside of APIs, as opposed to native chat interfaces. So if I opened up Claude right now and I asked it something and I wanted to use deep reasoning, it would spit out about 100, it would use about 100,000 output tokens if I gave it something really hard to focus on, and it would spit out a ton of information. So that's really what the use case is for all these Claude projects and things like that. But that's kind of the limit to where I keep it. Usually it's much larger on that side, and that's the only time that I would kind of like only use it for that information. I would never get an API to generate 15-20 pages of text. There will be a point where that will be possible. I don't think it'll be longer than a year before we start seeing that, but at this current moment I'm only using the chatbots for that in and of themselves. So that's my tutorial complete on how to generate a market research agent. This information is pretty easy to get around if you've been using something like Make.com for a while, because all of these builders work very similarly. And the only difference between AI agents is that instead of playing around with variables, you're playing around with writing to get what you need. The core foundation of this is something that I want to speak about in other videos, but if you haven't seen already, I've got a bunch of other Make.com videos on my channel. More and more n8n videos are coming out as well, but the most important videos are actually the ones that I'm going to talk about a lot of the time, especially the things like the how I make landing page agency from scratch videos, because that talks about relational databases. And the core thing that makes these as powerful as humanly possible, or as powerful as they could be, is the manipulation of proprietary data, and I'll get into that in another video. So that's how to leverage Deepseek R1 and web scrapers with n8n in order to create market research documentation that you can take into all of your creative briefs. Now, if you follow the blueprint that I just shared, there's no doubt you'll increase the time to value on your service and save dozens of hours of research on each client. But as you've seen already, I won't pretend that it's easy. You'll need to spend time configuring the workflows, generating the templates, understanding how to structure your prompts, picking the right LLMs, and integrating these insights into a creative brief and creative strategy that actually works for your service. If you want to skip the guesswork and implement a proven system, a step-by-step AI operating system that's helped countless e-commerce agencies, just click the first link in the description to book an audit call, and we'll map out how you can fully automate your entire operating system, your market research process, your copywriting process, and much more, and scale your agency with zero bottlenecks. If you found this helpful, be sure to give this a like and a share, and subscribe for more videos. I'll be diving way deeper into n8n on the future videos, so I'll see you on the next one.